Hello cozy artists, my nickname is Ray Claire. This is Tuna, and this is Apricot. Thanks for tuning in. So in this video, I'll be talking about what I've learned from making comics so far. I have a few webcomics up on my website, rayclairedeloon.com. Most of them are free, and I also have some exclusive comics on my membership page. Right now, this one is one of the free comics, and even though my illustrations are simple, it still takes quite a while to create a comic. There will be days when I can draw a whole illustration or a whole comic page, and then there are days when I don't want to draw at all. So I will move on to editing videos or emailing businesses about my products. I try my best not to work on the weekends or evenings, but there are times when either I do feel like drawing, and during those times I will draw. I didn't realize how much work and detail goes into comics, even if it's just a simple one. First there's writing the script, and then there's the thumbnailing, figuring out where you want different elements to go to tell your story. Then the line art and coloring if you want. Most of my comics I have left in grayscale just because it's easier and it kind of gives the old-timey feel. But some of my comics I did put color in it just because it felt like it needed color in order to convey the story more. And then after the coloring, lettering is also important. With my Tuna and Apricot comics, they don't have dialogue because I wanted to make it more universal by letting the pictures do the talking. But for my future comics, I'm planning on doing lettering, and that is almost equally important in conveying the feeling of the scene or the individual voice of each character. And it's really easy to take comics for granted because our eyes can just glance over a page quickly. But the reason why they glance over the page so quickly is because of all the work that is done beforehand by the artists involved. Page flow is heavily taken into consideration because that's part of the storytelling too. So I'm learning a lot on how to create comics, and I will release a future video discussing different art channels and books that have helped me learn and appreciate the art of comics more, and that may be able to help you also if you're creating your own comic. Out of all the different elements that go into creating comics that I mentioned, I actually really enjoy the coloring part of comics. I find it relaxing. It's the part where I can turn my brain off and just decide what to color in. With the grayscale, it's not as challenging, but when I do add colors to my comics, then I do have to put more thought into the palette, but it's still relaxing for me. I know for other artists it's different, which part is more difficult for them. My least favorite in creating comics is actually doing the thumbnails, but I know it's very important to figure out the placement of the page, and also after you do the thumbnail, it's not always the final product. because it can change once the line art goes down, and you may realize that you need to rearrange things in order for the story to make more sense. Another thing that I've learned from creating comics is that you do have to take care of your physical health. Sometimes if you push yourself too much, you could actually end up with an injury. You've probably heard other artists talk about this, but you do want to stretch. You stretch your arms and your back and make sure that your posture is proper, even though I will admit that my posture isn't always proper when I'm drawing. It's easy to, when you're getting in the flow of drawing, to zone out, and yeah, you want to be mindful because you don't want to sustain an injury and then it will inhibit you from drawing more in the future. As you can see in most of my videos, I do like to sit on the floor a lot and cozy up with a blanket, but I do make sure that I have pillows behind me to support my back, and I make sure to take breaks and stretch and walk around so that I won't injure myself. How I come up with my stories for my comics. I'm one of those people that gets so many different ideas that pop into my head when I'm inspired, and so in order to not forget them, I write them all down, and then one by one I start checking them off of my list. In this particular comic, Tuna and Apricot are going to the grocery store. It's called The Very Ordinary Adventures of Tuna and Apricot because I wanted to show them just living their life, doing ordinary things like grocery shopping, or watching movies together, different things. One of the exclusive comics that I have on my membership page that I've mentioned in a previous video is the Hawaiian series that was inspired by our trip to Hawaii. And yeah, so I just take inspiration from life. And most artists do this. They take inspiration from their own experiences and share them. So if you're stuck for ideas, it could be something simple as that. You don't have to make a complicated story. And I figure that all the things that I'm doing now are practice for future comics. You don't want to think too much about your projects because then you may never get started. This comic that I'm working on now is called The Hummingbird, and it was inspired by a hummingbird that had visited my husband and I one summer. We had these really pretty fuchsia plants hanging on our balcony, and I tried to recreate that scene. So you can see that this panel I left in black and white, but the first panel, or the first page and the last page, I put into color. Some of my comics will be longer than others. I just go by how I feel the story should be told. And I'm also still learning how I want my comics to be conveyed. So I don't mind that everything is kind of experimental right now. So far that is my process. I'm still learning so much, and I'm having fun with my comics, as I've said before. If you guys have any pointers, or if you've created comics before, or know of any good books to read about comics, or any of your favorite comics, I've said comics so many times, yeah, you can share them down below in the comments section. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everyone.